Thank you all for attending and getting here in a timely fashion today. I'm Dr. Jason Bolton, Vice President of Community Partnerships and Admissions for the Help Group. So the admissions part is the reason that I'm talking to you today in this open house. I want to be able to let you know from the beginning exactly what we're going to cover today. So what we'll do today is do a little bit of an introduction to the help group, to me. We'll talk about what an NPS is for those of you who need more information about that. We'll discuss the funding of non-public schools, the application process, what you need to do in order, if you're interested in applying to one of our schools. I'll talk a little bit about the 16 different schools that we do operate. And then I want to leave a good amount of time for questions. So some of you have already noticed that I've chatted a couple times just to let you know when we were going to get started. And there have been a couple of folks who have answered my chat as well, or have responded in chat. So that will be the way that you get questions to us. So the chat button on the bottom of your screen is open, and you may use that to communicate any questions that you might have. I might answer those in the moment if they seem relevant, but definitely we will have a significant amount of time at the end to answer whatever questions that you may have. So first of all, let me just spend a little bit of time talking about the help group. Many of you may already be aware of the help group, but if you're not, the help group is a pretty large nonprofit social and special education organization. Relevant to this conversation, we operate 16 non-public schools in the Los Angeles area, and also 15 in the Los Angeles area and one in Irvine. We serve students with autism spectrum disorders, learning disabilities, ADHD, developmental delays, and emotional challenges in those schools. And we contract with school districts to provide those services with more than 80 local education authorities, meaning school districts or charter schools who can place students with us. And we serve approximately 1,300 students in all of our schools. The help group also provides other services as well as schools. We have a large contract with the LA County Department of Mental Health to provide outpatient services to families who qualify. And we do a variety of other social and mental health endeavors, including also maintaining a residential program for adolescents and also one for adults. On the screen, you also see a description about the help group as well. So I wanted to be able to introduce our agency to you. Okay. So let's talk first about non-public schools in general. I talked a little bit about the fact that we operate 16 of them. And I've been doing these open houses I've been with the help group for 20 years. I've been doing these open houses for about 14 or 15 years. And it's not uncommon for folks to come to this meeting and not know what a non-public school is. So, and maybe there's parts of the country that don't have non-public schools and people have moved in and need to know more. So a non-public school is certified by the California Department of Education to provide special education services. Non-public schools also file an affidavit with the state on a yearly basis as a private school. So technically we're private schools, and we contract with school districts to provide special education services. The idea of a non-public school is that it's a service that extends a school district's ability to provide special education services to the students that they serve. So when they do not have an adequate program for a student, or a student needs more than what that school district can provide, then they will look to a non-public school to be able to extend their ability to provide those services to that student. We have chosen at the help group, the reason that we have 16 schools is that we have chosen to develop schools in a very specialized way so that we can educate students who have similar challenges and similar strengths together, allowing us to use the expertise of teachers and service providers to work with specifically that population of students. So later, when you hear me describe the schools, you will notice that we keep like students together in our schools. I said that we are a private school. That means that families can come to our school and pay privately to attend. However, about 95% of our students who attend our schools come here funded by their school districts. So that happens through the contracts that we maintain with different school districts, so that they are able to fund students to come to our schools. Erica, can you go back to the prior slide, please? The reason that I bring that up is when students are placed at one of our schools, the school district maintains responsibility for the student. And so the student is placed here through the IEP process. And because they are placed here through the IEP process, and because school districts have been a part of that process, the school district retains responsibility for that student, continues to hold annual and triennial IEPs for that student. We at the help group and in all of our schools, we are part of that IEP team. We sit at the table with you and with the school district, but the school district maintains that responsibility and continues to hold that IEP on an annual basis and triennially when necessary. So that relationship to your funding school district continues even after placement with us. When you are placed at one of our non-public schools, we are able to provide all of the services, the related services that are on your child's IEP. So we provide speech, we provide OT, we provide transportation. Believe it or not, transportation is considered a related service. So we transport your kids to school if that's necessary. And we provide counseling or ERIC services as are indicated on your student's IEP. So that's taken over by us. We can do that in a group setting if that's what makes sense for your student. We can do that individually if that's what makes sense for your student. And of course, all of that is talked about in the IEP and determined at that process. Okay. So I talked about, you can pay privately. We do have a number of students, a significant minority of our students, of our 1,300 students whose parents do pay privately, but the overwhelming majority of them are funded by their school district. So how does that work? So we have parents sometimes call us, and maybe they saw an advertisement for one of our schools, or they heard from their friends about one of our schools. They don't really know how they get their child funded to come to our school. So I talked about the relevance of the IEP team. Only an IEP team can make that decision. The help group doesn't make that decision. Only an IEP team can make that decision to pursue an NPS placement and to fund an NPS placement. So you sit as part of that IEP team, so you have a voice in that, as do the other players on the team that you know well if your child already has an IEP. Two ways from that IEP meeting that your child could be funded for a non-public school. The first is everyone agrees. The subject is brought up in the IEP. There's a lot of discussion about the need for something more than what's available within the school district. And the team agrees in the IEP to non-public school, and they write it right into the IEP that day and say that your child needs a non-public school placement. At that time, then you would go out and look at non-public schools like us. You'd sit at a meeting just like this. Maybe that's what a couple of you are doing right now, that indicated in the poll that you are already funded, that you start looking at schools and determine what non-public school that you like. So that's the first way and the easiest way and the most expeditious way to get funded for a non-public school. The other way is there's disagreement. So you as the parent or guardian or advocate for a student sit in an IEP meeting and you feel like your student needs more than what's being provided by his school or the school district. But other members of the IEP team disagree, and the IEP makes a placement decision for an environment other than a non-public school. At that point, you have the right, as you would in any IEP and any decision in an IEP, to disagree with that as the parent or guardian. And in that situation, you would be disagreeing with the placement offered. And that allows you then to move to the next stages within that district, either mediation or an informal meeting to try to, an informal dispute meeting to try to take care of that disagreement before that you get to mediation. But sometimes that does happen, and sometimes you must go through that mediation process in order to get non-public school funding. You may do that on your own, or you may enlist the help of advocates or attorneys to help you in that process. What we will do at the help group, because we're a private school, if you're funded, and I'm going to talk about the application process in a minute, and I might even repeat some of this information because it's pretty significant. But if you're funded, you're going to apply, and we'll go through that process that I'm going to describe. But we will also entertain your application even if you are not yet funded. And the purpose of that is so that you may understand whether or not there's a good fit between your child's strengths and challenges and the programs that we operate. You could know that even before you decide to disagree with a placement or look for or determine whether a non-public school is necessary for your child. So we're willing to do that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second when we talk about application. But let's go ahead and talk about application. So again, later here in a little bit, I'm going to give some brief descriptions of all of our schools. Certainly the descriptions that I give are brief and don't cover the full expanse of what we do, or else this would be a 3-hour webinar. But it's meant to give you, the broad strokes so that you can find out more as you go through the process. So how do you apply? The timing of the application. So a little bit of that is what I was just talking about in terms of we are happy to entertain an application, whether you are funded or even if you are not yet funded. So I'm happy to do that at any time. If you go away from this meeting and you feel like it's a good time to apply, then you can submit an application, a paper application, or even an online application. So if you go to www.thehelpgroup.org, you will find links under our schools to be able to apply online. You can also call our admissions office at any time with any of these questions. I'll probably be repeating this number to you later as well, but that you can get a hold of there's a number of different phone numbers that you can use, but you can use 818-779-5262, and you'll get in touch with our admissions office who can help you with the application process if you need it. Once we receive an application from you, whether it's online or in paper, those same lovely folks in the admissions office will give you a call to set up an admissions interview. That interview will be scheduled with an administrator from the school in which you apply, and we will ask for you to be present, for your child to be present. And right now we're doing the majority of those virtually, and we've even over these past 16 months, this is certainly something we're going to continue to do, even when we're able to do more and more in-person activities. It's just proven to be an efficient way to meet with people. So we can do that. And we are working more and more to have more in-person interactions as well. It does help you see the campus and experience it for with a little bit more reality. So that will be an option. During that interview, it can last an hour and a half. The evaluator spends some time talking with you, spends some time talking with you and your child, and sometimes might even ask to spend some time talking with your child alone. We also, during that interview, ask you to provide us with a couple of names of professionals in the community who know your child well. So we call that collateral information. We love for that to be the last teacher that worked with your child. That's the best case scenario. We also like to talk with speech therapists and OTs and maybe assistant principals, but folks who know your child well professionally in an educational environment. So we want to talk to a couple of those folks to get a good feel for what your child needs and what they're good at to develop a sense of whether we have a good fit with our schools. Sometimes a parent will say, well, I had some difficulty with the teacher last year, and that's part of why I am looking for a non-public school. And certainly you can provide us with other collateral information in lieu of that, but also know that we will take that into account. And usually still the best sense that we can get of your child's strengths and challenges are by talking with teachers who have worked with them more currently. Okay, so that's a really important piece of that. When the evaluator has completed their interview with you and your child and has also talked with the collateral sources and has also sort of reviewed all of the information that you submit with the application, it's at that time that we look at the whole picture and determine whether we have a good fit with our school. Because we have so many different options, so many different schools that we operate, we sometimes, in learning more and more about your child, will think that it's actually one of our other schools that's the more appropriate placement. So there's a number of different outcomes that may come from the evaluation. One is you apply to a certain school and we agree with you and we think it's a good fit, we're ready to go, and we accept to the school that you apply to. Another option is what I just described, that we think you're a good fit for one of our schools, it's just not the one you applied to. So we let you know that we'd be willing to accept to that school. You may not have seen that school yet, and you may want to come out and see it before you accept. Absolutely, that's possible. We may, even though we did our due diligence with all of those things that I just described, we may decide we still don't quite know where the best fit is or whether we have a good fit. And so we may ask to incorporate a visit to our school as part of our evaluation process. So we may ask for your child to come for 1, 2, 3 days, sit in a classroom, engage with the instruction, and use that to further our understanding of what may be a good fit. So that's a third outcome. And then every once in a while, we don't feel like we have a good fit in any of our schools, and we may not feel like the help group schools are the best option for your child. So those are the four outcomes. One of the great things about what we do is that because we have so many schools, our goal is to be able to provide a good solution for your child when you apply. After that, if we are to accept your child, the next step really depends upon where you are in the process. So if you're funded for a non-public school by your school district already, and they have referred him to us or let you know that they're going to support whatever non-public school you choose, then at that point you go back and let your district know that he's been accepted to uh, this school or that school, and the school district will then need to set up an IEP with you to change placement from wherever she currently is to one of our schools. We do rolling admissions. We see kids in July for evaluations. We see kids in December for evaluations. We see kids in May for evaluations. So if it makes sense at any time during the year, we are able to enroll and start a student at that time. If you are not yet funded, then what we're going, and we determine that there's a good fit to one of our schools, then what we're going to do is let you know that we find your child acceptable to one of our schools pending your ability to secure funding from your school district. And we will write you a letter that says that, and you may take that letter to your district and say, the help group's willing to accept my daughter to Village Glen. And the district may say, that's fine. Let's have an IEP and talk about whether or not a non-public school is really necessary. Because what we're saying in that case is really just that if your child were to be funded, we think we are a good fit for them. But again, like I reminded you earlier, it's really the IEP team that makes the decision about whether or not a non-public school is appropriate for your child. Okay, so those are the things that happen after you have applied and interviewed with us. Those are the different things that can happen. So let's talk a little bit about our schools. I've listed the names of our schools here on this slide. Our schools are available, many of our schools are available at more than one location. So while there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, while there's 8 schools listed up there, the reason I say 16 is because we have schools in more than one location. So we actually have 5 campuses where we have schools. I'm talking to you right now from Sherman Oaks, where we have Young Learners, Village Glen, Sunrise, and Bridgeport. We also have a large campus in Culver City, where we have Young Learners, Village Glen, Sunrise, Bridgeport, STEM Cubed Academy, Westview, if I didn't say Summit View, and Summit View. And then not far from where I'm sitting, just up the street a ways, we have our Valley Glen campus, which has a Summit View and also a STEM Cubed Academy. And then in Van Nuys, we have North Hills Prep on our Van Nuys campus, and that leaves our STEM Cubed Academy Orange County location, which is in Irvine. So you add all those together, and there's 16 schools on 5 campuses. Let me describe these schools briefly. Again, there's much more detail than what I will go into right now, but I think it's really important that you're able to to distinguish between the schools so that you know which one makes the most sense to apply to. Again, if you were to apply to Sunrise and during the evaluation process, we thought Bridgeport was the more appropriate school, we'll let you know, and that's fine. One thing I didn't say before that I think is important is when school districts do refer you to one of our schools, they really have no issue with us steering you towards another one of our schools. LAUSD in particular, which makes up about 70% of all of our students, is absolutely fine with referring you to one of our schools, and then we alter that path and suggest a different one. There's no issue with that at all. And we work with other school districts as well with the same. So, so if you come out of this or your own research into our school and you apply to a school that's not exactly the right fit, it's no big deal. We can take care of that change very easily. So the easiest one to describe really is Young Learners. Young Learners is our preschool, and it's the only preschool that we have. So if your child is age 3 or 4 and is in need of non-public school, then you have the easiest decision to make. It's Young Learners. And here's where I like to talk about my own personal experience a little bit. If any of you remember the old Hair Club for Men commercials, I don't know if they're still on or not, but I think the guy would say, I'm not only the owner, but also a customer. And that's the case with me with Young Learners. So 14 years ago, my wife and I brought triplet girls into this world, and they were born early, as multiples sometimes are, and had some perinatal developmental issues. And by the age of 2, had regional center services and special ed services once they turned 3. And one of my daughters was granted non-public school funding, and she came to Young Learners preschool. And she was at Young Learners for her entire age 3 year, and then for half of her age 4 year. And then she reunited with her sisters for the last half a year of preschool before they all went off together in kindergarten. You know, I guess this is a little bit of a testimonial, but certainly it's that year and a half that allowed her to have those skills that were necessary to take to that kindergarten to be with her sisters, and now graduate from 8th grade earlier in June, and they all 3 are amazingly getting ready to go to high school. So Young Learners was definitely an amazing experience. How coincidental that, you know, someone like me, I've been in the field for several years before the girls were born, and then would need to be a consumer of regional center and special ed services. So if you do need to talk to me about your child, know that you're talking to somebody who's been through this process before, both the piece of securing non-public school funding, placing a child in a non-public school, and also then thinking about the options to do what's next after there may be something after non-public school that's necessary. So I am happy and love, as you can see, to talk about that. So that's Young Learners preschool. Again, Young Learners is located on our Sherman Oaks campus and also our Culver City campus. I'll talk about Village Glen next. So Village Glen is designed for students who have average cognitive abilities. They may have areas of weakness in their academic portfolio, but in a broad picture, they have a pretty average profile in their academic and cognitive abilities. They may even have some areas in which they exceed average expectations in those areas. Kids that are appropriate for Village Glen, though, have challenges in the area of social communication. Some of these kids would have formally been given a diagnosis of Asperger's when we were using that nomenclature, and now may have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. But that's not necessary. We're not diagnostically rigid. We're not looking for a medical autism diagnosis. And the IEP eligibility doesn't even need to be aught. What we're really looking for is, are there social and communication challenges that fit nicely with the programming that we have designed at Village Glen? Village Glen is kindergarten through 12th grade. We aim to prepare students to graduate from our school if they stay long enough to do that, and go to college or a trade school prepared in a college preparatory environment during high school. So that's the definition of Village Glen. Our Sunrise School, which is also on those same 2 campuses, so in Sherman Oaks and also in Culver City. Also works with students kindergarten through 12th grade age, and also after the typical 12th grade age is able to work with students up to the age of 22. So we have a transition program within Sunrise for adult aged students up to the age of 22. Sunrise is designed for students who are more affected cognitively. So they are several years behind in their academics. They may have diagnoses consistent with autism, Down syndrome, Angelman syndrome, a number of different things that affect their skills of daily living and affect their ability to access a traditional curriculum. So the curriculum is an alternative curriculum in which we're trying to build daily living skills, prepare for possible work scenarios, not only as they get older with us, but after they leave and need to engage in the workforce after the age of 22. So that's our Sunrise program. Again, kindergarten through age 22, also in Sherman Oaks and in Culver City. Our Bridgeport school, also with campuses in Sherman Oaks and Culver City, is designed for students who need also those skills for daily living, and also can benefit from a modified academic curriculum as well. So we're doing both things within Bridgeport. We are teaching kids very practical living skills, and we are also teaching them academics in line with what they would learn at their age level, with the curriculum modified so that they can access that information and benefit from that. Bridgeport also starts at kindergarten. It ends in 12th grade. And then separately, although still under the same school, we have a vocational center for students after 12th grade through the age of 22, where they really focus very intensively on developing skills that allow them to enter the workforce once they reach the age of 22. So in that program, they have businesses and internships in which they work on campus. And then as they proceed through that program, they end up working off campus in community supported environments, learning how to develop their work skills. So that's the Bridgeport program and the Voc Center. In Culver City, Bridgeport and the Voc Center are actually separate schools. They work very closely together, but the California Department of Education certifies them separately. So you'll see, if you look on the website, you'll see Bridgeport West and you will see the Voc Center West. But really they are the Bridgeport program together. In Sherman Oaks, it's all together as one school. Okay. Let me just check the chat here a little bit here. And see where we are before I move forward. Okay. Just real quick, just want to highlight again before I jump into STEM Cube Academy. Just want to highlight again that you may apply at any time during the year, and we enroll at any time during the year, including if we would enroll in May if that made sense and sort of helps the child go into the extended school year the next year. We're able to do that at any time. So it's never too late. It's never too early. Anytime that feels right for you, we're here to accept that application. So let me describe STEM Cubed Academy. STEM Cubed Academy is the newest school that we operate. It has been around for several years now, and it's actually in 3 locations. So it's in our Valley Glen campus up the street from me, also in Culver City, and then our Orange County location in Irvine. STEM 3 Academy was designed for kids who might have those similar social and communication challenges as a Village Glen student, but who are average to above average cognitively with sincere interests in science, technology, engineering, and math. So the STEM Cubed Academy is elementary, middle school, and high school. Kids who stay with us and graduate tend to go on to college, where they are usually pursuing science and technology majors in college. They participate in robotics, they participate in coding. It's a very rigorous science, technology, and math curriculum. So those students, again, may have an OT diagnosis or an eligibility, not necessarily have to, but they typically are struggling with social communication, ability to make friends, maintain friends, and at the same time are uniquely interested in science, technology, engineering, and math. Okay. Next, I'll talk about Summit View. Our Summit View schools are located on 2 campuses, our Valley Glen campus, where STEM Cubed Academy is, and also in Culver City. And Summit View is a program that's been around for quite some time. It's designed for students who have a specific learning disability. So a child may have dyslexia, dyscalculia, may be a few years behind in reading, otherwise have average cognitive potential, but have these areas in which a learning disability affects their ability to benefit from the curriculum as presented without modification. So our students are kindergarten through 12th grade. It is definitely a college preparatory experience. Sports are available at Village Glen. Drama, there's a lot of extracurricular activities that are going on there, while at the same time we're really focusing on those areas where they have challenge within their academic portfolio. Kids tend to graduate from our Summit View schools and go to college and do well. Again, in the Valley and in Culver City. North Hills Prep is our school the only school that's at our Van Nuys campus. North Hills Prep is designed for kids who have social and emotional challenges. They may have suffered trauma in their life. They may need extra support from therapists and counselors in order to benefit from the curriculum as they engage with these social and emotional issues that can sometimes get in the way of their performance at school. Also, kindergarten through 12th grade also leads to a diploma and prepares students for academic work after graduation from North Hills Prep. And lastly, Westview, also at one location. Westview is in Culver City. Westview also, actually there isn't an elementary program at Westview. Westview is for middle school and high school students. These students also have social and emotional challenges that are the main reason that has given them some difficulty in school historically. Some students at Westview have in their past needed to be in a residential placement and are coming home to reunite with their families. Those students do very well at Westview as they start to work to come back into a more traditional school environment. Students at Westview tend to be more internalized with their social emotional challenges. So they struggle with depression, they struggle with getting up in the morning, they struggle with anxiety, these kinds of things. And so we have counselors, therapists, behavioral staff, and even our teachers who are dedicated to really developing these kinds of relationships that help these children overcome those challenges and do well. So that's the schools that are located on our 5 campuses. I am definitely open to hearing some questions here. So if you have any, please put those in the chat, and I'm going to see what we have here. So I have a question here that says, do students stay in our schools through 12th grade until they graduate? So yes, they can. One question that I'm often asked is, how do we determine whether we have been successful with a student? Meaning, should a student stay for a couple of years or should they graduate with us? And my best answer for that is that has to be determined on a case-by-case basis. It has to be, did we meet the needs of the child that came to us in the first place? So I gave the description of my own daughter. My daughter was with us for 1.5 years. I knew when she came here that was a goal, not necessarily 1.5 years, but I knew that I wanted her eventually to be able to go to school with her sisters. And so that 1.5 years was a success, an overwhelming success. We have other students who come to us in 5th grade and they graduate with us from 12th grade or stay in our program through the age of 22. And that is a success, because that is what that student needed. That student was able to graduate from high school. That student was able to develop the skills necessary to get a job after the age of 22, because we continued to provide those special education services to that child. A number of years ago, we took some data to determine if we could find out what predicts our ability to be successful with a student. And one of the most powerful pieces of data that came from that study was that when the parent and our team had very similar goals within the first year of meeting that student, a better outcome came from that. And that says a lot. That's very similar to what I'm just saying. That those goals in the beginning might have been, hey, I think my child needs to be here in order to graduate from high school. And once we were able to provide that, that was success. And other times we may have agreed that, hey, I think we can get them back for prom. I think by 11th grade, maybe they can experience that at their local high school. And we're able to provide that, and that is a success. So yes, absolutely, students stay with us and graduate through 12th grade. And we continue to talk about that on not just at every IEP every year, but continue to discuss what's appropriate for a child all the time, so that we can get on the same page about that. Let's see. What is the student to teacher ratio? So the largest a classroom can be is 14 students. There is typically at a minimum a teacher and an aide in the classroom. So at most it would be 1 to 7. There definitely are classrooms, especially earlier in the year, that are have fewer students than 14 of them. I remember an average coming out at the end of a couple of years ago was about 10.44. So it can really change. Also by school and by student need, it can vary quite a bit. Like in our Sunrise School, there may be more aides in the classroom because of student need, and that average can change. So it really is different school by school, and depending upon the needs of the children who are in each classroom. Do we deal with again, I'm reading questions verbatim as they are coming in. Do we deal with behavioral issues for students with autism? Yes, we definitely understand that a student who is diagnosed with autism may have concomitant behavioral issues that they are addressing, and we certainly provide support for that. We have BCBAs on our staff. We have behavior interventionists on our staff. Our counselors work behaviorally with students. So we absolutely do that. There may be, when you engage in the admissions process, there may be students whose behavior still needs to improve before we're able to find a good fit with some of our schools. It's hard for me to tell you exactly where that line is, because it really matters in all of the factors, the big picture with a student as we go through the evaluation process. And we'll be very upfront with you about our ability to meet a child's needs. But the easy answer to that question is absolutely. We're always dealing with behavioral issues, and not just with a kid with autism, really with any disability. Those come with the students who are requiring non-public school. Okay. See, when we're in person, people can ask follow-up questions, and I know whether I've answered things well or not. This is just more rapid fire. Does the help group have programs for 27-year-olds? So this is our school-based programs. You know, they end at 22 because that's when the federal ed code allows you to provide programs, special education programs up until the age of 22. But the help group has seen that issue develop over the years, and we have been adding programs to work with young adults more and more. So we have a program called Advance LA. Advance LA provides a variety of services, but some of those are coaching, like a paraprofessional or a counselor works with your young adult to help them with daily living skills or prepare for job interviews, or whatever ends up being part of the treatment plan. So Advance LA provides coaches. Advance LA also provides support to parents of young adults and a variety of other things. You can find Advance LA on our website, and also on its own website if you search Advance LA in your Google machine. You can also call me to talk further about that if you'd like. I see a specific question about Westview. Is Westview for students with average cognition and diploma track, and what grades? It is for students with average cognition. Remember, when we say average, it's a range. Students may have areas in which they struggle. They may have areas which they're right on, and they may have areas even where they exceed expectations. But overall, it's students who are in the average range cognitively. It is sixth grade through 12th grade. Westview is 6th grade through 12th grade. And yes, students do graduate from Westview with a high school diploma. We have about 5 minutes, so we're doing great. Will LAUSD funded students keep their BIIs when attending a help group school? Typically, no. Typically, when a student is granted non-public school funding, the idea of making that jump from a special education program at a local school and to an NPS means that they we want to try that service without the need for a BII. So typically they do not go with them. There have been times in which students, we might try a transitional time with an aide, but certainly our goal in providing the kinds of services that we provide as the non-public school is to attempt to use as little of that type of service as possible, because we want your child to be as independent as possible. So students who formerly may have had an aide may end up sharing an aide with someone for a while as they transition into our school, with the goal of fading that while they're with us. So that's my answer there. Who can we talk with at the help group to discuss our child's needs? The best answer for that is to give me a call. I like to do that. You can also talk to our admissions department if necessary. Let me go ahead and give my email address, though. Anybody can reach out to me at any time. So my email address is my first initial and last name. So J Bolton at thehelpgroup.org. My direct number to my office is 818-779-5360. And then I think I gave the admissions office number earlier, but I'll give it again. And by the way, if you see another admissions office number, there's a few 800 numbers that are out there. You can call those numbers as well. I'm just going to tell you the one that's on the top of my head because it's the one I use. You can dial 818-779-5262. Okay. I'm looking. Question is, what school would be a better fit for a child with fetal alcohol syndrome? So that's hard for me to answer just with that bit of information. We really are going to need to get a holistic view of the child so that we know where the strengths and the challenges are. One student who experienced a birth that led to having fetal alcohol syndrome may be very different from another. So all of the schools that I described would be fair game. We would just need to investigate and do that process to determine what the best fit is. Certainly happy to discuss your child further and see if we can limit that down a little bit so that we know where to, at least for you to start. And then of course, during that evaluation process, we can determine which would be the better fit if we have one. Okay, I think that's all I'm seeing here in terms of questions. I hope that I was able to answer everyone's questions. I hope that you will reach out to us further if you're interested in interviewing. I want to remind everyone of a couple things up on the screen right now. You're invited to register for a great talk by Dr. Thomas Brown and also Dr. Elizabeth Lageson on Saturday, July 17th. So feel free to go to the www.thehelpgroup.org and to register for that. I also want to let everyone know that we have already scheduled our next webcast. If you've attended any of our previous webcasts, so this was really an open house to talk about our schools, but we have done about 9, I think, webcasts in the last 16 months on a range of subjects that are relevant to students these days. And on September 22nd, we will have our next webcast where we're going to be talking, Dr. Ellis Krasnow will be talking about the benefits of a strengths-based STEM education for neurodiverse students. So please go ahead and put that on your calendar and you'll hear more from us about that. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see that phone number that I said will work to get to admissions, but different from the one I gave you. Also admissions@thehelpgroup.org. And then hopefully you all know our website, but you can always go to www.thehelpgroup.org. Thank you so much for attending today. If you have any other questions, shoot me an email. You can try me on my phone as well. And I hope to see all of you soon. Thanks a lot.